Alright, hey guys, this is Adrian with Art of Transliness, and this is week 2, interacting with cisgender men. And I had to think about this one for a while because being stealth, the dynamics of how I interact with cisgendered men um, is a little bit more complicated when they view you as like a cisgender man as well. So that's kind of weird. I kind of had to break it down into like 3 different scenarios in which I found myself interacting with cisgendered men who I didn't know very well, who like wouldn't necessarily know that I was trans. And so I thought, okay, well, I used to and still currently interact with cisgender men academically, like in an academic setting, or in some kind of like academic debate or conversation. Like that's the context of our relationship. Or I interact with them in the workplace, or we're coworkers, and then I interact with them um, like on a social level. And I feel like I interact with all of these people a little bit differently, and I view like the hierarchy of my masculinity to theirs a little bit differently. I would say that I would say that I fear some of my interactions with cisgender men the most at the workplace, I would say, and I obviously am more um, comfortable with the people that I interact with socially because they likely know that I'm trans, and then academically, I feel like I strive really hard um, to be competitive in that specific scenario when I'm interacting with cisgender men. And beyond that, I don't really like care about my interactions with cisgendered men. Like if I see them out or we're at like they're just strangers, like I pass them by. Like I don't really care to really consider those interactions because they're not very meaningful. But I would say in the workplace, I think it's competitive. Like no matter how you cut it, but I find that I'm the most anxious there because I look young. And so my interactions with cisgender men mostly involve them kind of talking down to me because they feel like they are more experienced or they're more knowledgeable or they're just cooler, than me. And that's something that's been a little bit difficult for me to have to handle. And I think that at my most recent job at Novartis, I found myself being a little bit passive aggressive toward the people who were talking down to me, which wasn't really okay. I don't really have a lot of good advice about how to navigate those waters besides just prove yourself as an employee and like your gender really shouldn't matter. Um, but I work in the science related fields and which are not like to a great extent, but can be dominated by men, and it's your self worth kind of in the workplace is determined on your output, and um, but I still found myself getting very anxious at work. Um, but then socially, um, obviously feeling very comfortable, but feeling so comfortable with like my friends, like my cisgender male friends who are primarily gay men or queer men, um, we're very like sex positive and very body positive, and very just like raging, and so being with those people a lot, like they're obviously like really open about their bodies, open about like the size of their dicks, like open about who they're sleeping with, who it's like very not like stereotypically sexually charged, but like we are all like young 20s. Like that's just kind of like what's going on in our lives is like hooking up, dating, partying, like destroying our bodies, and like that's just where I'm at, and it has nothing to do with like being queer. It just like I think it has a lot to do with like where I'm at in my life and like where my friends are at in our lives, and so that creates like a little bit like I feel obviously very comfortable with those people, but I feel a little bit obviously disadvantaged because like some of these stories I can't talk about, or like some of these like things that are going on with my male friends' bodies I can't talk about, or just like I don't feel dysphoric and they don't trigger me. Like, my friends don't purposely trigger me, but, like, sometimes I feel myself a little bit down with, like, my gay friends because they are, like, so confident in their bodies and so, like, just confident in who they are as people that I feel like I am lagging behind a little bit with that. But I'm coming to terms with that, and obviously nothing that I can hold against them. They don't do it again. They don't do it to me. They're just like confident people, and I'm not necessarily like the most confident person. And so my interactions with my cisgender male friends, when I'm socializing, mostly are with gay men, and it's mostly a very, very positive experience. And I don't feel really lacking in any way beyond that. So it's kind of interesting. And then academically, my interactions with cisgender men have been like kind of fierce sometimes, like very heated, very tension filled. But I know like my shit, and like it doesn't necessarily have to do with my gender either. But I like if I know the answer to a question academically, or if I am like refuting something that someone else says, like I will do it. Like if I think you're wrong academically, like I will tell you, or I will gladly engage in any type of academic debate with you. Anything scholarly, like I feel pretty comfortable with, and I feel like I interact most masculinely, like stereotypically masculine, academically with how I pursue like knowledge and debate and like that kind of tension. Um, and that's kind of interesting because that has nothing to do with like how old I am, how tall I am, how muscular I am, what I'm packing in my pants. Like it has nothing to do with that. And I think that's maybe why I feel so confident because I can acquire information the same way that any cisgender male can, and I can regurgitate or manipulate that information the same way that he can too. And maybe that's why I feel like most comfortable in my male identity when it comes to interacting with men in an academic setting. They're not as intimidating to me there. It kind of just levels the playing field, and I feel a lot better about my identity there, which is, yeah, pretty interesting. But I would say, I guess, considerations for trans men is don't let your body be a crutch necessarily when you interact with cisgender men. Confidence like trumps pretty much everything that I've seen. That if you know what you're about and you know your identity and you exude that and you know portray that confidence, people will pick up on it and respect you. Don't be an asshole, obviously, but I think when you're interacting with cisgender men, you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. Don't try to be someone that you're not, obviously, but where you're confident, excel in those areas, and where you maybe don't feel so sure about yourself, just take it slow, get to know those people, and be kind. Like, just be a good person. So that's all I've got for week 2, interactions with cis men, and I'll see you guys next week.